Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this channel. I wanted to share a series of prophetic dreams that I've had so far this year, which is abnormal for me. There certainly have been a lot this year. I have about 10 that seem to be of some sort of significance to what's going on in the world and the election. And right now it is October 30th, 2020, so we're just days away. And I feel a sense of urgency to share these because I think they might have to do with the election and the events that may follow. Now, I already shared one of those dreams I had from earlier this year in a previous video where I was present for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and attempted to free him from the cross. If you haven't seen that, check out that video. In this one, I'm going to try to get through the next 9 prophetic dreams that I've had this year. And keep in mind that I am not partial to any particular individual or candidate. It doesn't matter who I see, I'm going to relay it to you, whether it's in a positive or negative light for them. I'm not going to filter this at all. And so just keep that in mind as I'm reading through these. I'm just presenting what I've seen. So I'll start with the ones from this summer. For this one particular dream, I was inside a bunker of some sort, heavily fortified compound, and I was viewing a boardroom, and there were a bunch of individuals sitting at this boardroom table. Many of them were military. I could tell they were senior military leadership, and President Trump was sitting at the center. He had some papers in front of him, and they were briefing him on something important, and I couldn't hear exactly what they were discussing, but there were probably 5 or 6 TVs on the wall, and every single one of those TVs had national news outlets doing a broadcast, and every single TV was showing that there was a massive economic crash. All the numbers on the Dow and the NASDAQ were just plummeting, and I believe that that's what President Trump was meeting with his senior leadership officials about in wherever this bunker was. They had a very somber look on their face, and eventually Trump was ushered out of the building. He boarded a helicopter, and there's a group of other helicopters that took off with him as kind of an escort. And I got the impression that wherever he was going, he was not coming back. He was not heading to the White House. That's the impression that I got. And that was from this summer. And then I had one shortly after that. And this one I call Behind Enemy Lines. I was in a golf cart, and it was winter, and I was at an airport somewhere in Asia. And I knew in this dream that I was in a place that I shouldn't be. I was in a place where I could get into a lot of trouble if I was caught. There were several planes preparing for takeoff, and I was desperately searching for my plane that would bring me back to the United States. I don't know which country I was in, but I was somewhere behind enemy lines in a bad spot, and I knew that if I got caught, I'd be in trouble. So I'm driving around the tarmac on this golf cart for whatever reason, and I hang a left as I'm trying to find the stairs to board up to the gate for my plane, and I turn into a tunnel that takes me to an arena, a giant arena, and it was empty. You know, this is probably like a 60,000 seat arena. Nobody was in there, and I drove out to the middle of the floor, and the only individual in there was a dictator. It was some sort of Asian dictator who was standing at a podium looking down at me in a very threatening manner, and he was wearing a military uniform, military cap, and he pointed at me, and I knew I'd gotten caught, and there was a red hat, red baseball cap in the middle of the, right in front of the podium where he was standing. And he was standing like way up there, like 20, 30 feet above me, and he was pointing at me and then pointing down at this hat. From far away, it looked like a Make America Great Again hat that we all are familiar with. He instructed me to burn it, or else I would be shot dead. And so I walk up to the hat, and I have, there was some lighter fluid and a match near it. And then I turn the hat to look at it, expecting to see a Make America Great Again logo. But instead it's a CCCP logo, the old Russian Federation logo. Whatever that is, that's what was in the middle, was the logo on the hat. And then I woke up right before I was about to burn the hat. So I'm not really quite sure what that one meant. Shortly after that, I had another dream where I was at an airport. People were running and screaming. There was an imminent attack about to happen. Some sort of missile or bomb was about to explode. TSA was evacuating people quickly. And there was a lot of panic in the air. This was one where they weren't aware that I was there. So I was just kind of monitoring this whole scene. And then the dream cut to another scenario where I saw, again, individuals at a board table. But this time it wasn't President Trump there, it was former President Obama surrounded by a bunch of individuals, and that they were plotting some sort of attack on the US. And that they had something to do with, you know, whatever this evacuation and panic was all about. And then I woke up after I was looking at their boardroom table for a while, and I couldn't hear what they were saying, unfortunately, but I did have this knowledge that they were planning some sort of attack. And then shortly after that, I had another dream where I was in a fist fight with former President Obama. Not quite sure what that meant or what that was about, but I just remember that we were fighting and rolling around, and it was a pretty intense fight, and I woke up from that. Those are 4 dreams from this past summer. Then I had some from the fall, and I'll share those now. I was looking at a highway, and I had kind of an aerial perspective of this highway where cars were going back and forth. There were mountains in the background. It was a nice sunny day. And then, just like that, the sky blackened. And it was almost as if, imagine a giant volcano exploding, and just there's this darkness over the sky. And it seemed to be like a permanent darkness that was blocking out the sun. Like, not clouds or anything like that, but there was some sort of event that happened that caused everything to be dark in the middle of the day. And then a voice came down and said, what if the sun's light failed to hit the earth ever again? And I woke up from that. Another dream shortly after that. Again, we're in fall now. There was a train going through the mountains at a fast pace. I saw helicopters and aircraft from foreign governments. I'm not sure which, but I know that they were from foreign governments. And they were launching an attack on this particular train. They were sending missiles at it, and the train derailed and flipped over. And I could hear President Trump's voice from inside the train calling for help, calling for anyone to help him, as the train was, you know, it had rolled off into the trees and it was on fire, and they just continued to attack. A couple of weeks after that one, I had another where I was driving down a road with my nieces, and I think we were going to run errands. It was just a normal day. However, my niece in the back, my youngest niece, was holding a seismograph, it measures earthquakes, and she was just holding it there in her lap. And as I made this left turn, suddenly the ground started to shake violently. And I've experienced a couple of earthquakes before, but this was nothing like that. This was such a severe shaking that it forced my car off the road. And I got out of my car, and the ground was shaking so severely that I lost the ability to stand. I just collapsed on the ground as the whole ground was shaking. Cars were crashing, people were screaming. I ran over to my nieces, I got them out of the car, and then the shaking lasted for several minutes. Very violent. My legs were extremely weak because of the violent shaking. And then I look at my niece's seismograph, and it showed that there were hundreds of earthquakes hitting our area at the same time, hitting our state at the same time. And then I widened out the view and saw that there were hundreds more, several hundred more across the whole nation. That this whole earthquake swarm had hit the nation at the same time. And then the dream cut to we knew that our car was not drivable, and so we had to start walking back home. It was going to be a few miles back. And as we were walking, we were just seeing people in a daze. They were just dazed, they were confused, they were full of sorrow and sadness and shock, just absolute shock. There were fires breaking out all over. The sky grew dark, just like my previous dream, where everything was gray. It was the middle of the day, though, but the whole sky was gray. Fires were breaking out. I ended up finding this house where we needed to use the phone to call my dad to let him know, just check in, see if he's okay. And so we go into this house. This guy let us in, and I used the phone, called my dad, and he was crying on the phone. And he was, I've never heard him so fearful. But his voice was just full of fear. It was very shaky. And he said, while you're out, can you just bring back some food for the house? I just want everybody to be comfortable in our last hours. And then he hung up the phone. I was really shaken by that. And then the guy who was letting me use his phone led us into the living room. We sat down and we were talking about what had happened. We knew at that time that it was God's judgment on the nation and on the world. And right as we were discussing that, some sort of animal came slamming into the window, left a bloody mark, and then it ran off. And the man at that house said, I know you have to walk back home a bit further and be careful, because now animals are attacking people. So then we left the house, and I just remember we were ducking behind cars and trees, avoiding both people and animals. It's like it was a true apocalyptic scenario, like something you see in the movies. And then I woke up from that very disturbed. Had another dream. This is on October 28th, where this one woke me up at 2 a.m. I was confronted by Satan, and this is the first time that I've ever seen Satan in a dream. But he was a very imposing figure. He stood about 7-8 feet tall, very built. His whole body was like charcoal black, and I remember very broad shoulders, and he was looking down at me, and I didn't see any facial features because his whole body was so charcoal black. And I did see the eyes, though. He had these orange reddish eyes that were glaring at me. I could tell he was angry, and he was advancing towards me in this dream over and over again, and I was just punching him in the face. And I must have punched him in the face for 45 minutes straight, is what it felt like. Every type of hook and punch and jab that you can imagine. And then at the very end of it, I just, used all my might to hit him as hard as I could, and then he fell. And when he fell, the ground just shook violently, and then I woke up from that. And then I had one last night. Like I said, they're happening at a greater frequency as we move forward, and so that's why I feel compelled to share these. So with this one, I was on an island. I don't know where, but it was a lush tropical island. I recall seeing tigers at this particular place, and the tigers were very nervous, stressed out, pacing because of something that was happening on the island. And then I saw a bunch of villagers, natives on this island who were trying to figure out what a group of individuals were doing there. There was a group of individuals who looked like they were armed militia that didn't belong there, from some type of military organization. I don't know which country, but they were blocking off roads, and they were kind of pushing people back, and the people were trying to go about their business, but this group of individuals, they weren't letting that happen. They were sectioning off a large portion of this island, and the residents wanted to know why, and they wouldn't tell them. They told them that it was for construction reasons. And then the dream cut to me seeing these individuals, this militia, in a room, and what they were planning. And it wasn't about construction, it was about a nuclear test. So they were going to do nuclear tests on this section of the island. They were working on making a deal with some country in South America. And whichever country's representatives were a part of this had not arrived yet, but that they were on their way, and so they needed this area for nuclear testing. And that I remember seeing one of the militia members who were part of this group ask if he could pray, and the men around him kind of looked at him confused. And the next thing I see is him being led to the gallows. I remember seeing the noose and the rope. So they were going to hang him for praying. And then the dream cut to me talking to my family and telling them that whatever was happening with this foreign government and this nuclear test and this whole deal that was happening was a direct threat on our lives here in America. And that whichever country this is planning a nuclear attack in the United States, and that we just have to be prepared. And the looks on their faces, of course, they were very concerned and saddened and worried. And then I woke up from that, and again, that was last night. So roughly 10 important visions or dreams from this year. I think we'll know more after the election in terms of, which way this whole thing is going to go. I know that there are foreign governments and our enemies are watching the election closely, as are we. It has economic implications to a greater extent than I think a lot of people realize. So I'll continue to share these dreams as they come. I feel compelled to do it, and I'm glad to have this channel to do it. Again, I'm not going to filter any of this information. I'm just going to present it to you and leave it to you to interpretation. But I know when I have a dream that is significant, it's whenever I have all the details, and occasionally it'll wake me up in the middle of the night to make sure I remember it. Because I have plenty of dreams that aren't important, and I know that they're not important. But these, you can just tell that it's a bit more than just a random dream. And I've asked God to give me the gift of prophecy, to give me the gift of dreams and visions, and I've had that for much of my life. But during this year, it seems to have rapidly increased. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys next time.